You are listening to Crazy Karen HOA. This is the pettiest snow emergency ever. I am standing in the parking lot of Icefall Landing, Burlington, Vermont, at 7 in the morning, and Cynthia Jones is screaming at me about a tow warning sticker on my windshield while pointing at a salt bucket like it is Exhibit A in a murder trial. "You need to move this vehicle immediately," she shouts, "or it will be towed under snow emergency protocol." The sticker says my car is parked illegally during a snow emergency that ended 6 hours ago, and the plow berms are already melting into gray slush rivers that are soaking through my boots. I moved to Burlington 3 years ago for a job as a civil engineer because I wanted clean air, good skiing, and a quiet neighborhood where I could focus on contract work without drama. Icefall Landing Winter Compliance Association had other plans. The HOA here is a beast that wakes up every time snow falls, and Cynthia Jones, the election committee chair, runs it like a seasonal inquisition where selective enforcement ramps up after every snowfall. What is at stake is not just my sanity. I am in the middle of a big contract, a state bridge rehab project with a hard deadline in 4 weeks, and distractions could cost me real money if I miss deliverables or lose focus during critical design review windows. The first sign of trouble came 2 weeks ago when I got a letter about my driveway snow pile being 6 inches over the property line, which was insane because I had measured it twice and photographed the boundary stakes. Cynthia showed up with a tape measure, declared I was in violation, and walked away before I could ask to see the rule in writing. Now she is back, and this time she brought a clipboard. "This is standard enforcement," she says, tapping the sticker with one gloved finger. "Everyone on this street was notified." "I did not get a notification," I say. "Then you did not check your email." I check my email obsessively because contract change orders come in at random hours, and there was nothing from the HOA about a snow emergency extension. Cynthia pulls out her phone, scrolls for 3 seconds, then flips it toward me with a screen full of text I cannot read from this distance. "See?" she says. "Sent at 11 last night." "The snow emergency was declared over at 1 in the morning by the city," I say. "Your email does not override that." "Our rules do," she snaps. Smile, I am documenting this for the file. She takes a photo of my car, another of me standing next to it, and a third of the tow sticker itself. I realize this is not about snow. This is about control, and I am the test case. A neighbor walking a dog across the street slows down, pulls out a phone, and starts filming from a safe distance. Good. Witnesses matter. "I have done this before and people fold every time," Cynthia says, and that line lands like a brick. She has done this before. This is a system. I do not fold. I take out my own phone and photograph the sticker, the timestamp on the city website showing the emergency ended hours ago, and Cynthia still holding her clipboard. Then I walk inside, grab my laptop, and pull up my security camera footage with timestamps that contradicts the snow timeline they claim. The camera shows the plow finishing our street at 12:53 in the morning. The emergency was lifted 7 minutes later. My car was parked legally. I email the footage to myself, copy it to a backup drive, and start a new folder labeled Icefall Winter Compliance Evidence. 2 days later, I get a letter in the mail. It is a warning that my guests will be cited or towed during the next snow emergency, even though I have not had guests park on the street in weeks. The letter does not cite a specific rule number. It just says continued non-compliance may result in further action. I call the number on the letterhead and get Cynthia. What rule am I violating? I ask. You know what you did, she says. I want the rule number and the text. It is in the covenant. What page? She pauses. I hear the key ring with gate fob's jingle on her end. I will send you a link, she says and hangs up. The link never comes. I spend the next evening digging through the HOA Covenant PDF on the association website. The snow emergency section is 3 paragraphs. It says the board can extend emergencies if conditions warrant, but it also says homeowners must receive 24 hours notice unless public safety is at immediate risk. Cynthia sent her email 13 hours before my car was stickered and the city had already cleared the streets. I screenshot the covenant language, highlight the notice requirement, and add it to the evidence folder. Then I get an email from a vendor I have never heard of, a towing company, confirming my vehicle is flagged for priority removal during the next event. I did not authorize this. I call the towing company and they say the HOA requested it. I ask for documentation and they forward me a spreadsheet with a list of addresses. My address is highlighted in yellow. There are 6 other addresses highlighted. I recognize 2 of them, both homes owned by people who have filed complaints against the board in the past year. This is a target list. I screenshot the spreadsheet, add it to the folder, and then I stop arguing and started collecting. Because the end game was already set. I know where this is going. Cynthia is going to escalate until I either pay a bogus fine or she manufactures a lien. But she is sloppy, and sloppy is exactly what I need. The next snowfall comes 3 days later. 4 inches, light and fluffy, gone by noon. I shovel my walk and driveway by 8 in the morning and salt the steps myself. At 9:30, Cynthia shows up with 2 board members I have never met and a bag of ice melt. We are performing a safety inspection, she announces. I did not request one, I say. We do not need your permission. She walks up my front steps, inspects the salt I already put down, then signals to one of the board members who dumps a fresh layer of ice melt over mine. You are required to maintain safe conditions, Cynthia says. We are going to bill you for this service since you failed to do it yourself. I already did it, I say, pointing at the white streaks still visible under the new layer. Not to code, she says. What code? HOA Winter Safety Standards. Show me the standard. She does not. Instead, she takes more photos, writes something on her clipboard and leaves. 2 days later, I get an invoice for $75 for emergency ice melt application. The invoice has no itemization, no rule citation, and no signature. Just a number and a due date. I do not pay it. I send a formal dispute letter citing the covenant section on advance notice for services and demanding an itemized breakdown. Cynthia replies with a 2-sentence email saying the bill stands and failure to pay will result in collections. That is escalation step 2. A threat to send collections even though the fees are disputed and under appeal, and I know she is trying to force me into a corner before I can organize a defense. But I have a deadline that is bigger than her power trip. A neighbor, a retired lawyer named Bill, who lives 4 doors down and has been fighting the board for 2 years over drainage assessments, offered to testify at the next board meeting about the selective enforcement patterns, but he can only make it tonight before travel plans take him to Florida for a month. Ageni drive exception in the Birdbatswas country, backs a pugsumdia parks and down to Lessier. They menleast wasta book colliers in hair. When they're all sucked with a lost un noxo, and we Ruth passed to play a Christ. When we first stat and made in the Naxon. Ral Concraxon, when we mom and fied and were around floor and expending friends. If I wait, I lose my best witness. If I move now, I go in half prepared. I choose now. I email Bill and confirm he is coming. Then I draft a records request under Vermont's Homeowner Association statute, demanding all snow emergency notices sent in the past 12 months, all vendor contracts related to towing and ice melt services, and all communications between board members and the towing company. I cite the statute number, include the mandatory 15-day response window, and send it certified mail with email confirmation. Cynthia does not reply to the email. 3 days later, I get a voicemail. She sounds annoyed. "You need to submit records requests through the proper channels," she says. "I have no idea what the proper channels are because the covenant does not define them." I reply to her voicemail with an email repeating the statute citation and adding that failure to respond is a violation I can report to the state. She does not call back. The board meeting is scheduled for tonight at 7. I print out everything: the security footage timestamps, the tow warning photo, the vendor spreadsheet with my highlighted address, the disputed invoice, the covenant language, and a one-page timeline that connects all of it. I put it all in a tabbed binder and tuck it under my arm. Bill meets me in the parking lot and we walk into the clubhouse together. The meeting room is half full. Cynthia is at the front with her clipboard and that same key ring jingling every time she shifts her weight. The board president, a guy named Dale who never makes eye contact, is shuffling papers. The agenda is printed on a single sheet taped to the wall, no readable text visible, but I can see my name is not on it. I stand up during open comment and say I want to address the winter compliance violations I have been receiving. Dale looks at Cynthia. Cynthia looks at her clipboard. "That is not on the agenda," she says. If you are enjoying this story, hit the like button and subscribe because HOA drama only gets better from here. Open comment does not require agenda placement, Bill says from his seat. He is right, and Cynthia knows it. "Fine," she says. 2 minutes. I lay out the timeline. The tow sticker placed during a non-emergency. The guest warning with no rule citation. The ice melt ambush and the bogus invoice. I hold up the binder. I have footage, I have emails, and I have a vendor spreadsheet that shows my address was flagged before any violation occurred. "That is internal operational data," Cynthia interrupts. "You do not have authorization to possess that." "It was forwarded to me by the vendor you hired," I say. "If it is internal, maybe you should not have shared it with contractors." A few people in the audience shift in their seats. One woman in the back pulls out her phone and starts taking notes. Cynthia taps her pen on the clipboard, then stands up. "You are misrepresenting the facts," she says. "The association has clear rules about snow emergencies and we enforce them equally." "Then show me the rule," I say. She flips through her clipboard, scanning pages. "It is in the covenant," she says. "What section?" "Winter compliance," she says. "What page?" She keeps flipping. Then she stops, clears her throat, and reads out loud. "All homeowners must ensure that driveways, walkways, and common areas adjacent to their property are cleared of snow and ice within 24 hours of accumulation. Failure to comply will result in fines as outlined in Section 12. "That is Section 9, Bill says. "You are reading the landscaping maintenance section." The room goes quiet. Cynthia looks down at the clipboard again. Her face flushes. She starts. "The winter section is similar." "It is not," I say. "The winter section requires 24 hours notice for emergency extensions, and it prohibits fees without itemization." You violated both. Cynthia slams the clipboard down on the table. You are twisting the language, she says. I have done this before and people fold every time. There it is again. The boomerang line. And this time, I have it on my phone because I started recording the moment I stood up. People fold because you bully them into paying before they realize you are making it up, I say. But I am not folding. I filed a records request 3 days ago, and you have not responded. That is a state statute violation. If you want to keep escalating, I will file a state procedure complaint that forces the HOA to respond in writing, under penalty, and we will see how well your rule quote theater holds up. Dale finally speaks. Let us table this until we can review the records request, he says. No, Cynthia snaps. This is a compliance issue and we need to address it now. You just read the wrong section out loud, someone from the back says. Maybe we should table it. Cynthia turns toward the voice, her keyring jangling. Who said that? She demands. No one answers. The woman taking notes is now filming on her phone. Cynthia notices and her expression hardens. Residents are not allowed to record board meetings without advance notice, she says. That is not in the covenant either, Bill says. The meeting derails from there. Dale tries to regain control, but 2 other homeowners stand up and start asking questions about their own violations. One about a mailbox flag and another about a trash can placement dispute. Cynthia tries to answer, but she keeps contradicting herself, at one point saying enforcement is complaint-driven, and then 2 minutes later saying it is routine and systematic. I sit down and let the chaos build because every word she says is digging the hole deeper. The meeting ends with no votes, no resolutions, and Cynthia storming out while muttering something about consulting the attorney. Bill pats me on the shoulder. You rattled her, he says. Keep the pressure on. I go home and upload the meeting recording to the cloud, then add it to the evidence folder. The next morning I get an email from Dale saying the board is reviewing my records request and will respond within the statutory window. It is the first reasonable communication I have received, and I know it means Cynthia is losing control of the narrative. 2 days later, another snowstorm hits. 6 inches overnight, heavy and wet. I am up at 6 shoveling, and by 7 my driveway is clear and salted. I take photos with timestamps showing the work is done. At 7:30, Cynthia appears at the end of my driveway with her salt bucket and 2 board members. We are conducting a safety inspection, she announces. Not this again, I say. You have ice buildup on your walkway, she says, pointing at a patch of wet pavement that is just melting in the morning sun. That is water, I say. It is above freezing. It is a slip hazard, she insists. One of the board members, a younger guy I do not recognize, steps onto my walkway and immediately slips. He does not fall, just loses his footing for a second. But Cynthia lunges forward like he just survived a car crash. Did you see that? She shouts. He could have been seriously injured. He is fine, I say. We are documenting this, she says, pulling out her phone. Smile. I am documenting this for the file. She takes another round of photos. Then the board member who slipped pulls a stiff glove out of his coat pocket, one that looks frozen solid, and drops it on my walkway. Cynthia photographs it like it is evidence of a crime scene. This was left here, she says. Negligence. That is not mine, I say. You just dropped it. Prove it, she says. I point up at my doorbell camera. Already did, I say. Her face tightens. She grabs the glove, stuffs it back in the board member's pocket, and they leave without another word. I go inside, download the footage, and add it to the folder. The clip shows them arriving, the fake slip, and Cynthia planting the glove. It is absurd, but it is also evidence of intent. That afternoon, I get a letter saying I am being fined $200 for failure to maintain a safe walkway and another $100 for creating a hazard during a snow event. The letter is signed by Cynthia as compliance chair and includes a deadline of 5 days to pay, or the amount will be sent to collections. I do not pay. Instead, I draft a response citing the doorbell footage, the weather data showing temps above freezing, and the fact that planting evidence is fraud. I attach screenshots of the video and send the whole package to Dale, copying the entire board. I also send a copy to the management company listed on the HOA website, a firm out of Montpellier that I am not even sure is still active. The management company replies within 2 hours. They say they have not been retained by Icefall Landing in over a year and suggest I contact the board directly. That is a red flag. If the HOA does not have a management company, who is processing the financials and maintaining the records? I send another email to Dale asking who is managing the books. He does not reply. Bill calls me that night. I just got a letter, he says. They are threatening to fine me for a drainage issue that was resolved 8 months ago. This is retaliation. Same here, I say. They are throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. We need to force a special meeting, he says. Get the whole neighborhood to see what is happening. I agree, but I also know Cynthia will try to control the meeting the same way she controlled the last one. I need something that flips the room before she can spin it. I need the trump card I have been holding. 3 weeks ago, during one of Cynthia's early driveway inspections, I recorded a conversation where she told me the board has the authority to override city regulations if safety is at risk, and homeowners who do not comply can be removed from the association. That is not true. Vermont law does not allow HOAs to remove homeowners except through foreclosure for unpaid liens, and even that requires a court process. Cynthia claiming the board can remove people is a lie, and it is a lie that proves she is either incompetent or intentionally misleading residents to coerce compliance. I have been sitting on that recording because I wanted to see how far she would go before I played it. Now I know. She has gone all the way to fraud and fake evidence. It is time. I draft an email to every homeowner in Icefall Landing. I pull the addresses from the association directory that is posted on the website. The subject line is, Recording of Compliance Chair Making False Legal Claims. The body is 2 paragraphs summarizing the recording and explaining that Cynthia has been claiming enforcement powers the HOA does not legally have. I attach the audio file, the covenant sections that contradict her claims, and a link to the Vermont statute on HOA authority. Then I schedule the email to send at 6 p.m., 1 hour before the next board meeting. At 6:05, my phone starts buzzing. Text messages from neighbors I barely know. Did you really record her saying that? Is this legit? Can she actually kick people out? I reply to a few with links to the statute and let the rest spread on their own. By 6:30, the parking lot outside the clubhouse is packed. There are twice as many cars as the last meeting. Bill is already inside saving me a seat. I walk in at 6:55, and the room is standing room only. Cynthia is at the front, her face pale, her clipboard held against her chest like a shield. Dale is beside her, looking at his phone and frowning. When I sit down, Cynthia sees me and her jaw tightens. Dale calls the meeting to order, but before he can read the agenda, a woman in the 3rd row stands up. I got an email tonight with a recording of Cynthia saying the board can remove homeowners, she says. Is that true? No, Dale says quickly. That is not our policy. But she said it. The woman presses. I heard the recording. Cynthia stands. That recording was taken out of context, she says. I was explaining a hypothetical scenario. You said it was board authority, I call out from my seat. You said homeowners who do not comply can be removed from the association. That is not hypothetical. That is a threat. It was a misstatement, Cynthia snaps. Or it was a lie to scare people into paying bogus fines, someone else says. The room erupts. People are talking over each other, some defending Cynthia, most demanding answers. Dale tries to restore order, but it is too late. Bill stands up and raises his hand. I would like to make a motion, he says. I move that the board issue a written retraction of all winter compliance violations issued in the past 60 days and refund any fees collected, pending a full third-party audit of the enforcement process. Someone seconds the motion immediately. Dale looks at Cynthia. She is shaking her head. We cannot do that, she says. It would undermine all our enforcement. Your enforcement is illegal, Bill says. You are charging fees without itemization. You are threatening collections on disputed charges, and your compliance chair is on record lying about the board's legal authority. If you do not retract and refund, I will personally file complaints with the state on behalf of every homeowner here. The room goes silent. Cynthia opens her mouth, then closes it. Dale sets his phone down. Let me confer with the board, he says, and calls for a recess. They step into a side room. The rest of us wait. 10 minutes later they come back. Dale looks exhausted. The board has voted to approve the motion, he says. We will issue written retractions and process refunds within 14 days. We are also suspending all snow emergency enforcement, pending a review of the covenant language. Cynthia does not say a word. She picks up her clipboard and walks out. The key ring jingles one last time as the door closes behind her. Bill grins at me. You did it, he says. Not yet, I say. I want it in writing. 2 days later, I get a certified letter from the board. It is a one-page retraction stating that recent winter compliance actions were issued in error, and all associated fees are void. The letter includes a check for $275, covering the ice melt invoice and the walkway fine. At the bottom, Dale has signed it as board president. There is no signature from Cynthia. A week after that, the HOA sends a mass mailing to every homeowner with the same retraction letter and an apology for the confusion. The letter also announces that Cynthia Jones has resigned from the election committee, effective immediately, and the board is forming a compliance review task force to update the winter enforcement policies. I run into Cynthia one more time at the shared mailbox cluster in late March when the last of the snow is finally melting into brown slush rivers that snake across the parking lot. She is pulling mail out of her box and does not see me at first. When she does, she freezes. I heard you resigned, I say. She does not reply. She closes her mailbox and turns to leave. For what it is worth, I add, you were right about one thing. People do fold. But only when they do not know the rules. She stops, looks back at me, and for a second I think she is going to say something. Instead, she just shakes her head and walks away, her boots squelching in the wet pavement. Bill texts me later that day, "Did you hear? The board voted to hire an actual management company. Cynthia's records were a mess. No vendor contracts, no meeting minutes for half the enforcement actions, and the towing company was never approved by a board vote. So she was freelancing, I text back. Completely, he replies. The new management company is doing a full audit. Your filing fees are getting refunded too. What filing fees? I ask. The records request, he says. The HOA is paying your costs to settle the whole thing. I did not ask for that, I text. You did not have to, Bill replies. The statute says if the HOA fails to respond on time, they pay the requester's costs. You cited it in your complaint. The new company saw the liability and cut a check to end the fight. That is the HOA paying your filing fees to close the loop and avoid a bigger mess. 3 weeks later, I get another check in the mail. It is for $420 covering my records request filing costs, certified mail fees, and mileage to the board meetings. The memo line says settlement of administrative dispute. I deposit it the same day. The new management company sends out a survey asking residents what they want changed. I fill it out and suggest they eliminate the compliance chair position entirely and require all enforcement actions to go through a neutral third party. 2 months later, they adopt exactly that policy. Cynthia moves out of Icefall Landing in June. I hear through Bill that she bought a condo in South Burlington with no HOA. Good for her, I say, and I mean it. Some people are not built for the accountability that comes with Zapisi and paper trails. The bridge project finishes on time. I get a bonus for delivering early and use part of it to upgrade my doorbell camera to a full security system with 4 angles covering my driveway, walkway, and both sides of the house. I also buy a commercial-grade ice melt spreader and keep receipts for every bag I use, just in case. But the real payoff comes in September, at the annual HOA meeting when the board presents the audited financials. Turns out Cynthia had been approving vendor charges without board votes for 2 years, racking up over $30,000 in unapproved expenses. The management company recovered most of it through vendor refunds and insurance claims, but the whole episode becomes a case study in why HOAs need oversight. Bill gets elected to the board that night and immediately pushes through a rule requiring recorded votes for any expenditure over $500. It passes unanimously. I stay out of HOA politics after that. I show up to meetings when something matters, but mostly I keep my head down and do my job. The contract work keeps coming, the snow keeps falling, and Icefall Landing settles into a quiet rhythm where enforcement is predictable and nobody screams at anyone in the parking lot at 7 in the morning. One February morning, a year after the whole mess started, I am shoveling my driveway when a new neighbor walks over. He is young, maybe late 20s, and he has a question about snow removal rules. I just got a letter from the board about my walkway, he says. It does not cite a rule number. Is that normal? No, I say. Ask them for the covenant section and the exact language. If they cannot provide it, dispute the letter in writing and keep a copy. He looks surprised. You have done this before, he says. Once or twice, I say. He thanks me and heads back to his driveway. I finish shoveling, salt the steps, and take my usual timestamp photos. Then I go inside, make coffee, and get back to work on a new project. A highway interchange design that is going to keep me busy through the spring. The binder with all the evidence is still on my shelf. Tabs intact, every page in order. I have not opened it in months, but I keep it there as a reminder that the best defense against petty tyrants is not anger or escalation. It is documentation, patience, and knowing exactly when to deploy the truth. Cynthia learned that the hard way. She confidently read the wrong rule section out loud in front of a room full of witnesses, and that single mistake unraveled everything she had built. People remember that moment. It is the story neighbors tell when someone new moves in and asks about the HOA. It is the punchline that never gets old. And every time I hear it, I think about that recording, the one where she claimed the board could remove homeowners, and how it sat in my pocket for weeks while she kept escalating. The moment I sent it to the whole neighborhood, the power flipped. She walked into that meeting expecting to control the room, and instead she faced a crowd that had already heard her own words used against her. That is poetic justice, HOA style. The gate still freezes sometimes during hard cold snaps, and when it does I hear that keyring jingle in my memory. But the gate gets fixed now, usually within a day, because the new management company actually responds to maintenance requests. It is a small thing, but it is the kind of small thing that makes a neighborhood livable. I never filed the state complaint. I did not need to. The threat was enough, combined with the evidence and the recording, to force the board into a corner where the only rational move was retreat. That is the thing about bullies who rely on intimidation. They fold the moment someone calls their bluff with facts and witnesses. The snow keeps falling in Burlington, and every time it does, I shovel my driveway, salt my steps, and take my photos. It is routine now, muscle memory, but it is also insurance. Because the next time someone tries to weaponize winter against me, I will be ready with timestamps, footage, and a paper trail that does not lie. And if they are smart, they will remember what happened to the last person who tried. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.